My future stepdaughter destroyed my wedding dress a week before the wedding. I am torn between giving her another chance and calling off the entire event. My name is Emily, and in exactly 1 week, I was supposed to step into a new chapter of my life, dressed in a gown that carried generations of love and dreams, just as my late grandmother had envisioned. The wedding had been everything Charles and I talked about for over a year, ever since he proposed on a chilly but heartwarming evening at our favorite little lakeside spot, where we first realized we were in love. But tonight, as I sit among the ruins of my once pristine wedding dress, those dreams feel as shredded as the delicate fabric lying in tatters around me. Charles and I met at a time when the promise of new beginnings seemed like nothing more than a distant whisper on the horizon. I was emerging from the fog of a tumultuous relationship, and Charles, similarly, was piecing his life back together after his divorce from Mary. Our worlds collided one crisp autumn evening at a mutual friend's art exhibition, where paintings of serene landscapes and turbulent seas mirrored our own internal struggles. From our first conversation, it was clear that Charles was a man of depth and integrity. He shared his journey with candid vulnerability, his marriage to Mary, their early years filled with love that slowly curdled into resentment, and their eventual separation. When he spoke of Linda, his daughter, his eyes lit up. She was his pride, his joy, his grounding force. Charles explained that Mary had always been the more ambitious partner, her desires sprawling beyond the confines of their family life. This ultimately led her down a path that did not include him. His honesty about the complexities of co-parenting with someone he could no longer trust, yet who remained an integral part of his life because of Linda, painted a picture of a man who valued responsibility above all else. Our relationship developed slowly, built on a foundation of deep mutual respect and shared experiences of past hurts. Charles was clear from the start. His daughter came first. I admired this about him. It was one of the things that drew me closer, despite knowing the challenges that lay ahead. Integrating into Charles and Linda's world was not without its trials. Linda was only 6 when her parents split, and her world was irrevocably changed. By the time I met her, she was a precocious 8-year-old with a sharp intellect and a guarded heart. Her initial wariness of me was palpable. It was clear that Mary's influence, coupled with the insecurities bred from her parents' split, shaped her early interactions with me. "You're not my mom" became a refrain I heard too often, each utterance a small slice to my heart. Understanding the depth of her turmoil, Charles and I decided to seek family therapy. It was important to us that Linda felt supported and that she understood her feelings were valid and heard. These sessions were a mix of breakthroughs and setbacks. We navigated through difficult conversations about loyalty, trust, and the changes my presence brought into her life. Therapy provided us with the tools to communicate more effectively, and slowly the barriers Linda had built began to crumble. Outside of therapy, I made every effort to connect with Linda on her terms. We found common ground in our love for the arts. I remember taking her to her first ballet, her eyes wide with wonder as the dancers leaped across the stage. It was one of the first times she held my hand voluntarily, a small gesture that felt like a significant victory. We also shared a love for the outdoors. Charles, Linda, and I would often go on hikes where she seemed to relax. On one particular hike, Linda slipped and scraped her knee. Instinctively, I reached out to comfort her, and to my surprise, she leaned into my embrace. It was a moment of unspoken acceptance, a softening between us. Despite these moments of connection, challenges remained. Linda's oscillation between warmth and coldness could be jarring. We had days filled with laughter and lightheartedness, and others where her withdrawal reminded me of the delicate dance we were still engaged in. Mary's presence in the background often felt like a shadow, adding tension to an already complex dynamic. As our wedding approached, I sensed a shift in Linda. Perhaps it was the permanence the marriage implied or the whispers of her mother's discontent that found their way to her ears. The incidents of defiance grew, culminating in cutting remarks and resistance to the family structure we tried to build. Charles stood by me through every painful moment, his resolve to make this work as strong as mine. Yet, each conflict with Linda made me question if I was truly prepared for the road ahead. The days leading up to the wedding are typically filled with a bubbling mix of nervous excitement and joyful anticipation. For me, the day I went to pick up my wedding dress was supposed to be a highlight. My dress, inspired by my late grandmother's wedding gown, was more than just fabric and thread. It was a symbol of heritage, a piece of family history tailored to fit the new contours of my life. The dress hung there, a dream spun into reality, altered to fit me. I felt the soft fabric caress my skin, hearing whispers of my grandmother's joy. It was perfect, carefully zipped into a garment bag to protect it until the wedding. That day seemed ordinary enough. Charles had custody of Linda, and she was to hang out at her friend's house before coming over to my place for dinner. Charles was running late from a meeting, and I was in the kitchen when Linda arrived. Her greeting was a casual nod, her mood unreadable. I asked about her day, received a non-committal shrug, and went back to cooking. Looking back, I wish I had seen the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. When dinner was ready, I called out to Linda. There was no response. A thread of unease began to weave itself into my heart as I walked toward my bedroom. That's when I noticed the closet door slightly ajar. Pushing the door open, I froze. Glitter covered the floor, a cascade of sparkling specks. And there, amidst the shimmering chaos, lay my wedding dress, slashed to ribbons and defaced with splashes of glitter paint. My breath caught in my throat. Tears blurred my vision as I sank to the floor. Charles found me there, my sobs a broken soundtrack to the wreckage. His face went through shock, pain, and fury as he saw the ruin. "What were you thinking, Linda?" Charles's voice trembled with restrained anger. Linda shrugged, her voice cold and detached. "What's the point? She's just a fat old cow anyway." Her words were a slap, a verbal manifestation of the violence she had inflicted on my dress. Charles's reaction was swift. He confiscated her phone and called Mary, insisting they needed to address the severity of Linda's actions. Left alone, the gravity of the situation settled around me. This wasn't just about a dress, it was about what it represented. My place in this family. The respect I thought I had built with Linda. That evening, Charles and I faced each other across the ruins of our planned happiness. "Emily, I love you. We can get through this. Please don't let this destroy us," Charles pleaded. But I wasn't sure anymore. Could we fix this? Could we truly build a future amidst this chaos? The conversation stretched late into the night, a painful dissection of our relationship. In the end, I made the hardest decision of my life, to postpone the wedding. Postponing the wedding felt like admitting defeat, a public declaration that our family wasn't yet ready for the unity we had envisioned. But deep down, I knew it was the right decision. The ruined dress had become a symbol, not just of betrayal, but of the unspoken cracks in our relationships. To move forward, we needed to rebuild from the foundation. The days following the decision were a whirlwind of emotions. Charles and I agreed to separate temporarily, not as a sign of giving up, but to take a step back and gain clarity. He moved in with a friend, taking Linda with him. It gave us both the space to reflect without the immediacy of emotions clouding our judgment. For Charles, the separation was devastating. He called every evening, his voice heavy with regret and desperation. "Emily," he'd say, "I know this hurts, but please believe that I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But every time I thought about Linda's actions, a knot of resentment tightened in my chest. How could a child I'd poured so much love and patience into repay me with such cruelty? During this time, I threw myself into therapy, both individual sessions and the family therapy we had been attending with Linda. I needed to untangle the complex emotions of anger, sadness, and guilt that had taken root. My therapist, Dr. Lily, became a guiding light, helping me process the betrayal without letting it consume me. She reminded me that Linda's actions, as painful as they were, stemmed from her own struggles. "Children act out because they don't have the words to express their pain," Dr. Lily explained. "Linda likely sees your wedding as a threat to her place in Charles's life. That doesn't excuse her behavior, but it does help us understand it." Charles took a more active role in addressing Linda's behavior. He sought out a child psychologist who specialized in helping children adjust to blended families. Linda's therapy sessions were grueling, with breakthroughs that were often accompanied by setbacks. One day, Charles called me after a session. "Linda admitted something today," he began, his voice tentative. "She said she was scared. Scared that if I married you, I'd love you more than her. She thought if she destroyed the dress, the wedding wouldn't happen, and she'd keep her place in my life." The admission broke my heart. For so long, I had seen Linda as a deliberate antagonist, but her actions were rooted in fear, a fear that my presence would diminish her father's love for her. Charles continued, "She's starting to open up, Emily. It's going to take time, but I can see that she's trying. I hope you'll give us another chance." Weeks turned into months, and the tension began to ease. Charles and Linda slowly reintroduced themselves into my life, starting with short visits. The first dinner we had together was strained but civil. Linda barely spoke, her eyes glued to her plate, but there was no hostility in her demeanor. It was progress, however small. During one of these visits, Linda hesitantly approached me. "I'm sorry," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. She looked at the floor, her hands wringing nervously. It wasn't the grand apology I had imagined, but it was genuine. "Thank you, Linda," I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That means a lot to me." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a glimmer of hope. Charles and I decided to attend couples counseling to address the lingering hurt and doubts that remained after the incident. Through these sessions, we worked on rebuilding trust and strengthening our communication. "I never realized how much you were carrying," Charles admitted during one session. "I thought I was shielding you from the worst of it, but I see now that I wasn't doing enough." Hearing him acknowledge this was a turning point. For the first time, I felt truly seen and supported. We also revisited the wedding plans, this time with a new approach. We decided on a much smaller ceremony, one that emphasized our love and commitment rather than the spectacle. The focus shifted from creating a perfect event to creating a meaningful day for us and those who supported our journey. As months passed, Linda continued her therapy and began to show genuine progress. She started expressing her feelings in healthier ways, and her relationship with me grew warmer. One day, while we were painting together, a hobby we discovered we both enjoyed, she turned to me and said, "I want to help with the wedding. I know I messed up, but I want to make it better." Her offer brought tears to my eyes. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. A year after the original date, Charles and I finally stood under the canopy of a vineyard, surrounded by close friends and family. My dress, though not the original heirloom, was beautiful, a reflection of the new beginnings we had worked so hard to create. Linda played a significant role in the ceremony, standing by Charles's side as a flower girl. As she scattered petals along the aisle, she glanced back at me with a small, shy smile. It was a moment of unspoken understanding, a promise of better days ahead. Blending a family is never easy, and there were still challenges ahead. But Charles and I were committed to creating a home filled with love, patience, and understanding. Linda's journey continued to be one of growth and self-discovery. There were setbacks, of course, but each one was met with renewed determination from all of us. Our family therapy sessions became a cornerstone of our lives, a place where we could address conflicts and celebrate progress. As I reflect on the journey that brought us here, I realize that love isn't just about the joyful moments. It's about choosing each other, even when it's hard. It's about facing challenges together and finding strength in the commitment to grow as a family. The shredded dress was once a symbol of pain and betrayal, but now it serves as a reminder of how far we've come. Together, we're stitching a new fabric of love and resilience, one thread at a time.